I can read and interpret data in a line plot and use data to make a line plot. So in this lesson, we're going to extend what we know already about graphs to learn about a new type of graph called a line plot. A line plot can also be called a dot plot. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to interpret and make line plots or dot plots. Line plots are used to show frequencies for data items. Line plots can also be used to find any trends, clusters, or gaps in data. A line plot shows the shape of data, so any clusters or gaps are clearly visible. For example, you can see where all the x's tend to group, or if there are no x's between groups of x's, as you'll see later on in this lesson. So let's talk about what a line plot is. So what's a line plot? A line plot uses marks to record each piece of data above a number line. It helps you see groups in the data. So a line plot is another type of table or graph. So let's look at some examples of what a line plot could look like. Here's a line plot of second grade heights. Here's a line plot of the number of stuffed animals that students may have at home. And here's a line plot that shows the data of the ages of teachers in a school. Now, let's look at this line plot. Here's a line plot that shows the data of the number of letters in our first names. So in this line plot, the marks that we are using to record each piece of data is an X. Each X stands for one student. Now look at this label down in the bottom. It says number of letters in our first names. You'll also notice that there are numbers here, just like in a number line. The numbers show the number of letters in a name. So, for this line plot, some students took a survey of the number of letters in their first names, and then they recorded this data in this line plot that you see here. Now, notice that students have 3 letters, 4 letters, 5 letters, 6 letters, 7 letters, or 8 letters in their first names. So the letters in the students' names, in the students' first names, ranges from 3 letters all the way to 8 letters. Now looking at this line plot, you can see that most students have 5 letters in their name, in their first name. You can also see that the number of letters which occurred the least often was 7 letters, since there's only one mark on top of the number 7. Let's look at the number 6, meaning 6 letters in a first name. That 6 would stand for 6 letters. And if you look at the number 6, there are 4 X's or 4 marks above the number 6. So that means that 4 students have 6 letters in their first names. Now let's look at the number 3. The number 3 stands for 3 letters. There are 2 X's above the number 3. So that tells us that there are 2 students that have 3 letters in their first names. So looking at this line plot, we can generate several facts. For example, we can tell from this data that more students have first names with 3, 4, or 5 letters than with 6, 7, or 8 letters. We can also see that the same amount of students have 3 letters in their name and 8 letters in their name, since there are 2 students with 3 letters in their first name and 2 students with 8 letters in their first name. We can also add on to this line plot. Now think about your first name. How many letters are in your first name? If you were to add on to this line plot, where would you put your X? Well, in my first name, I have 4 letters. So I would put it right on top of number 4. Now look how this line plot has changed. Now, because I have added my name to this line plot, now the number of students or people who have 4 letters in their first name and those who have 5 letters in their first name is the same. Let's take a look at this line plot. The title of this line plot is Spelling Test Scores. So, based on this line plot, which test score did the most students receive? Looking at this line plot, you'll see that there are the most marks or X's on this 85 score. So, most students received 85. How many students received 85? Just simply count the marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 students received the score of 85. How many students scored 90 on the spelling test? Well, here's 90. Let's count the marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 students scored a 90. Well, did more students score a 90 or a 100? Well, you can see that there are more marks on the 90. So more students scored 90. Well, how many more students scored 90 than 100? Now in that question, you have to compare those that received 90 and those that received 100. In a line plot, you can clearly see how many more scored 90 than 100. That is more. How many more is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 more students scored 90 than 100. And looking at this line plot, you can tell how many students in all took the spelling test. You would just simply have to count all of the marks. If you recall, there were 10 that received an 85. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. 28 students took the test in all. In this lesson, you learned how to read and interpret data in a line plot and how to use data to make a line plot.